Hello, my name is Višnja Kisić. I'm a heritage scholar and ecoculturologist, as well as a caretaker of an initiative called the Forest University. In this section, I want to talk about pluriverse and pluriversal heritage. There's this sentence that says the world in which many worlds can fit. And that's probably the shortest definition of pluriverse, and the first one, as many say, the sentence and the slogan that has been coined by Zapatistas from Mexico, and then embraced by many decolonial movements and thinkers. And what it tells us is that Western civilization often acts as if this world we live in is a one world. Basically a world in which there is a linear, modern idea of progress, which everyone should follow, that other cultures, communities, and parts of the world are not seen as legitimately able to live other ways of being, or as legitimately having other ways of knowing, and we'll see also as legitimately having other ways of doing heritage. In this universalist logic, they are seen as kind of being in lack or being less developed, less civilized, less able to institute specific ways of governance over life. And you can see how this universalist logic is actually deeply colonial logic. Colonial not only in the sense of extracting resources and kind of instituting settlements, but also in saying us that we should all pray, feel, eat, live, and do things the same way, the European way. So pluriverse is an invitation for us to recognize other worlds that are possible and strive for the world in which many worlds can fit, in which many knowledges can fit, in which many ways of being can fit, and in particular, recognizing ways of being that are post-development oriented, degrowth oriented, which seek to value and mobilize local ecological networks and knowledges. So how can we think heritage through the concept of pluriverse, and how can we kind of envision this pluriversal heritage? We can first start by recognizing the universalizing logic of modern heritage regime. So the fact that this modern heritage has been framed in the west of the European continent in the end of 18th and the 19th century, and then pushed and exported to other parts of the world through numerous organizations, including UNESCO, World Bank, international development aid programs, and so on. This idea of heritage that is embedded in material remains that have to be conserved and restored, of connection between heritage and identity and nation state, of special institutions such as museums and archives, which care for the objects of the past, of professionals that are educated to care for heritage so that other people can visit and sometimes consume the past, of heritage serving development in a global capitalist regime. This is what Laura Jane Smith calls the authorized heritage discourse, but we can also call it the dominant modern heritage regime. And this universalist regime of heritage, that is itself a heritage of enlightenment and capitalist modernity, sits at the core of the continuous colonial project. So pluriversal heritage invites us to decolonize heritage and to recognize different heritage ontologies that exist throughout the earth. It invites us sort of to abandon the centrality of Western exceptionalism in our thinking and practices, and especially in our ways of doing heritage. For example, it invites us to see that some First Nations people in British Columbia do heritage by letting the poles of the houses dissolve and disassemble into the earth again, thus cherishing the process of continuous flow of life and death of all matter. To put this in a museum is in direct violation of their heritage regime. Similarly, it invites us to recognize that for communities in Colombian Chocó region, practicing their culture and heritage comes always in relation with the territory and all the living creatures, all the web of life of that territory. You cannot mine and pollute the rivers, displace the community, and then build them a museum of intangible heritage where they will perform their rituals. that is not the way to safeguard their culture and their rituals. Those rituals depends on all ecosystem. So there are numerous examples like this. These are just the two. But what is common to many of these non-universalizing ontologies, these pluriversal ontologies, is that they are relational. That they do not think about heritage through separation and abstraction, but through relationships and intertwining of all life. Pluriversal heritage might teach us that dominant universal regimes of doing heritage are not the only ways, and are maybe not the best ways either. Especially in the wake of climate change and ecological collapse, we need to turn to this pluriversality to learn from other ways of conceiving, caring, and doing heritage.